Welcome back live from the Lamar Theatre in Amsterdam. We are talking to a lot of guests from the Singularity University Summit today. It's an exciting day with a lot of interesting people and a lot of different subjects. We talked to a lot of scientists, but we also talk to people that actually make it happen, what is all described by all these people here on stage. So that is basically you. Who are you and what are you doing here?
Okay, so my name is Nora Caldy. I'm the founder of Neuritas. So my background is pure maths and computer science. And then I ventured into the life science because I wanted to apply those kind of systematic ways to a biological entity. And I started working in areas like drug discovery. And then at a certain period in my postdoc, so after my PhD, I started working in food, and more specifically in milk. And lots of people around me were like, "Are you crazy? Like, what's in milk? From maths to milk?" But it's interesting because it opened my eyes on a whole new ocean of information that we're sitting on for over 200,000 years. The information lying within food. There is trillions of molecules in food. There's more data in food than all social media put together. So the goal for me during that period was to identify within food very specific molecules that are going to modulate disease and going to help prevent disease from happening. And I discovered quite a few in milk, and then realized that food is not just milk, there are many other foods, and started working in food and created a company called Neuritas. The company is based in Ireland now. And what we're doing is we're creating what we call life-changing ingredients. These are ingredients that are going to be added to every product in the world, in like creams or foods, like cereal bars or drugs that are going to transform health, improve health.
So how does this work? How do you come up with these ingredients?
So, like I was saying, so every food has a number of trillions of molecules. We're interested in a subset called peptides. So peptides are molecules in food that are embedded within the protein structure of the food. And when you eat the food itself, you don't get that benefit. It's only by us identifying the peptide, releasing it from the full structure, that it becomes active in our body. And how we work is that it's the first time that a team in the world has combined a lot of different areas. And the areas we are combining currently, artificial intelligence is a big one, but the knowledge about food, the disease pathway interactions in the human body, and molecular evolution and molecular biology and so forth. And by integrating those, we're capable of going into a food, looking at every peptide in the food, usually about 30 to 40 billion for every single food we take, and understanding how that specific molecule goes and interacts with the human body. What is it doing? Some of them are going to just get broken down. They have just turned into energy. But some of them are going to be really active in that they bind to a certain receptor that's going to modulate a disease. And those are the ones we're interested in. So the traditional way of finding these active ingredients usually takes hundreds of millions. It takes years and years. What we're bringing together is a new technology that basically finds them in a very, very efficient way, very quickly, and creates cost-effective ingredients that are going to transform human health. And very specific activity. So they bind to a very specific receptor, and there's a downstream signaling mechanism in the body and for disease reduction.
And does this apply to everybody? I mean, will everybody react to this peptide the same way?
Yeah.
Or everybody with the same disease? Because diseases usually manifest themselves in different ways in different people.
They do. So one of the things is, obviously we're all different, but even before we get to personalized nutrition, there are groups of people in the world that suffer from something like diabetes, cancer, inflammation, which basically is the core of every single disease. And while you have inflammation, if it becomes chronic, it turns into a disease. So you want to contain it before it becomes a disease. And to contain it currently, the only solutions are either you take a drug, which you can't because you don't have the disease yet, or you take an aspirin, and again, you can't take loads of aspirin. So it's really about, well, eat that food, it might be good for you, or take that supplement, it was said to be good for you, but that's it, that's the extent of what we have now. However, what we're creating is a very targeted solution where we're making it making it possible through the technology to find cost-effective ingredients called peptides are going to basically clearly, if you have an inflammation problem, and specifically your TNF-alpha receptor or TNF-alpha expression that's a problem that's specific in inflammation, we have ingredients that target that specific inflammatory marker. And then you have another inflammatory marker, then we have another ingredient targeting that. So it's a very targeted thing to a certain disease. Now, how would that work? So one of the examples I gave in my talk is the example of our mobiles and our wearables. Very soon will be our health monitor. It will be telling us every single minute how we're doing. And it will come back with things like, Nora, your inflammation has gone up over the past 3 months significantly. You need to try and do something. But currently there's no solution. I'd be sitting there saying, okay, actually I can eat a food and hope for the best. But so we're making those ingredients faster, cheaper, cost effective, so that you'll have a product, for example, a product like a bread or a drink that you could actually drink and know that that's going to help you if you had high inflammatory markers. Or if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, your glucose is high, but you're not in a disease state yet, you're not diabetic. Currently in the world, there's no solution. You cannot take insulin because you don't have the disease. The only solution for you is to change your lifestyle.
Yeah. Change diet.
Change diet, change lifestyle.
Yeah.
The problem is that most people don't.
No.
So instead of
it's easier
letting them die,
to eat something extra or have an
instead
addition
of,
to it.
Exactly. Instead of letting them die or taking them into a disease state, which is diabetic, which costs governments around the world trillions.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, let's take it step by step. If there were a cereal bar, that was one of the dreams I really have from the start of my career, a cereal bar that you could, that pre-diabetics could eat every single day with an active ingredient that was made by us. So the active is us, not the cereal. Cereal bar, we partner with a food company that would target reduction, scientific, clear reduction of glucose, so that the person reduces their glucose to a healthy level and doesn't go into a disease state. So that's what we're doing. And
how far are you? Is this on the market already?
It's not on the market.
No. You didn't bring me a bar.
No, not yet. But we have the powders. So it takes a while. So every area has its own regulatory path and its own. Mm-hmm. So we start from a prediction, which is theoretical. So prediction, so we go into food, we look at the DNA of the food, the protein of the food, and then we find something in the food that's natural, that's there, and we say, okay, that one has a very high potential to bind to this very specific receptor in the human body. The artificial intelligence also tells us whether we can make it in the lab. We can physically make the powder because you can find stuff, but you can't make them. So then we take that into the lab, make it, and then test it to see if it works on cells initially, and then we scale the ingredient because it needs to be scaled at commercial levels to make it viable.
And at an exponential pace, of course.
Yeah, and then that goes into humans. So we have a few ingredients now in human clinical, and a few ingredients in all the different parts, a lot in prediction and all the way through. And then every area has different regulations. So let's say if you have a problem on your skin, so that's the cosmetic skincare area, then you go into the food, if it's a problem internal, food supplements, medical food, then pharma. So all those areas are areas we're going into with partners that sell. We don't sell. We create the active. It's like the intel or the chip within that's going to go into future products around the world to clearly reduce disease risks or enhance certain things in people that may have a problem with glucose even before prediabetes, cholesterol, or going into areas like cancer, which is one of the goals as well, reducing the risk of getting cancer by reducing inflammation, for example. Or it can be skin problems, so eczema or just aging, reducing aging. So we have ingredients in all these. I've shown some results there. And they're incredible. They're absolutely incredible. And to say that we've sat on this information for 200,000 years, and
we're
it's
actually
only
eating
now,
part of it
we're
already.
Eating part of it.
Yeah.
And I find it incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
But also shed a new light on certain natural material, natural medication that people say, that's crap, that's not science, but but maybe something was in there, maybe there was a peptide hidden in there that would actually work.
Because obviously you have these traditional medicine or traditional paramedicine things where they say, okay, well, this herb has been used and traditionally, it has shown an effect, but again, it's you take a risk by taking these things. You don't know what it's doing, how it's doing it, why it's doing it. So
and it's more than just one peptide. It's
a whole exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of clarity that's needed, and by identifying them and understanding the clear mechanism of action, you remove a lot of that. Doubt even in a lot of people. Like, you find these in food. Yeah, they're in food, but they're locked. They're.
So, and is it applicable to all kinds of diseases, or is there a limit to what you can do with it?
So, at the moment we need to focus as a small company. We're focused on 4 areas, but those are we can expand into new areas basically by just deciding to. And looking at the pathway. So this basically the receptors implicated in the human body, which we want to target, and looking at all foods around the world. So at the moment we're focused on 4 areas: inflammation, which is core to every disease. Right. Absolutely everything starts with that. Parkinson, Alzheimer's, cancers, diabetes, from absolutely everything. So controlling inflammation is a big one. The other one is muscle health. As we grow older, we lose muscle, and as a consequence, you lose your health, because mobility and also sorts of things. And muscle health is important for many things in the body. It produces a lot of things. So what we have created are ingredients that enhance muscle health by 2 things: by increasing its recovery and abundance. So by synthesizing more muscle, so the muscle cell keeps healthy by making itself again, and also by improving glucose uptake into the muscle. And that's for diabetics, pre-diabetics, etc. So instead of having it in the blood, you put it into the muscle feeds off that, which is good. And then the third area is antimicrobial, so things that kill bacteria to in a very safe way to enhance either shelf life of products, or to cure wounds and so forth. And finally, the 4th part is about aging. So we're interested at the moment in skin aging, first market. So cosmetics, so skin aging, wound healing on the skin, and so forth.
Commercially, a huge market, obviously, as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That might help.
Yeah, especially when something actually works. Yeah, definitely.
Right. So how does this work? Do you select a disease, or do you come up with a peptide, and do you look for a pattern at a disease, or how does this process work?
Yeah, so the first 4 areas were chosen because of they're huge problems, and most people suffer from them. Diabetes is on the rise, muscle loss, sarcopenia, aging population is growing.
Actually, it's all aging.
Yeah, and then the other aging, so anti-aging, is a big one. So those were chosen because of that, and then inflammation and all the major diseases can actually link to. So they were chosen on that, but we're going into areas like satiety, so obesity and so forth, and things like cancer as well, certain types of cancer. So
and is that prevention of cancer, or is that already?
So
is a later stage cancer is also
both directions. Right. So the goal is to.
That's a scary claim.
Yes, it's actually both directions that we're targeting. So again, in these areas, we don't work alone. We partner. So, for example, in the drug area, we discover, and the partner takes it forward, and. So their expertise of commercializing, going through the major clinicals, etc.
But if I'm Pfizer or a pharmaceutical, I can just call you and say, okay, I got this disease here, and
we're interested in this disease.
Get me some peptides.
We're interested in this disease, yeah. So we partner with companies to co-develop ingredients that are specific to a very big market, and we do that sometimes very early on, And sometimes we develop it further ourselves and then partner at the later stage for the commercialization stage. When the peptide is completely ready, it's clinically proven, it's ready.
You don't want to create the bar yourself or add it to the bar.
No, because that's not our expertise for now.
You call Mars and you say, you make a very unhealthy bar with our peptides, so people will actually eat it and become more healthy.
Yes. That's not our background. Our background is really discovery and taking it forward, scaling it, making it real. Clinically proven it, but it's the whole production and food production or pharmaceutical production is not our background. So, but maybe one day we'll have a Neuritas brand for food.
Yeah, Neuritas bar. So you said we make it commercially available and everything. So how fast, how expensive or cheap is the process to produce?
So usually in the food area, which is the cheapest, like in pharma it's much more expensive, but in food, to identify an active ingredient that clearly does something, it takes about between 7 and 10 years, and it takes about probably 40 million or so. And that's if you know what you're doing, if you really have the really good science caliber and they actually done this before and they know what they're doing. But what we do is bringing it down, so the time is about 6 months, a few months to discover. And because we know the active, we know the sequence, we know how it behaves, we have a better handle on how it's going to behave in human or how it's going to behave on a cell, etc., and how we're going to scale it. So it takes literally a few months to a year to have a clear cycle from theory to an ingredient at the end that works.
Right, and the scaling part, how do you scale the production of it?
Yeah, so at the moment we're working with third-party manufacturing. We don't have manufacturing in place ourselves, although that's in the plan. But we scale with third parties. So third parties have, that's what they do. They do kind of like a service where they scale the ingredients of whether it's a pharmaceutical or a food company. You go to them with the process and they scale it for you. So we have done that with some of their ingredients.
Right. So is there's clearly some sort of an algorithm in here that, or software or code that you created to easily identify these different peptides and everything?
Yeah.
So is that also part of your enthusiasm from your background in?
So my background was the invention of the core technology that we call NPFI, Neuritas Peptide Finder. So the technology is a software. It's not just code or it's the integration of it to real relevant biological data and real relevant biological questions as well, and good data. And then everything in the process is fed back to it because it's machine learning. So if something doesn't work that we predicted worked, should be fed back so we learn better the next time. If a clinical fails, same thing. If it doesn't scale well, again we feed that back. So the algorithm is not just learning how to identify, but how to actually take it from a theory all the way to market. At the moment we're adding steps of regulatory steps, because regulation has its own map of how your ingredients should do, and it's a very complicated map, and it changes from area to area, from country to country. So we're trying to even automate that part where we're like, okay, is this ingredient going to ever make it in this place, or is it not? Or is this ingredient? So all that is at the moment being integrated at the same time, which is great. So very, very quickly we would be able to very quickly assess the life of an ingredient even before we make it. It's just on a computer. It's going to work in human. It's going to do this, do that, and scale or not.
So talking about scaling, you see that a lot of companies these days are either creating open source of software or allowing third parties access to their software or machines or whatever. You can tap into the wisdom of IBM Watson if you like to. Yeah. Do you have such a plan for the future?
So we so basically we started off when we started Neuritas initially, for clear funding purposes or revenue purposes, we needed to partner very quickly, and the goal was to help companies with their own products develop ingredients. So a lot of these food companies had a lot of byproduct that they were sitting on. They didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So they were asking us if we could find something valuable by a peptide for in that product. They could sell it for that health benefit. So we started off that way, but the problem is that it took a lot of time from other major projects we had, which was all internal. So we decided to move away from that once we got funding. So we got a huge round of funding from Silicon Valley investors and Singapore investors and so forth. And basically the goal then was to move away from that type of deal to focus really on developing things that we discover fully. So the IP is really ours fully and so forth. So the question, I think I'm answering your question, which is those model, which it's not just a service, it was kind of a service with royalty on it as well. So it wasn't just a simple service. We moved away from this because,
I'm also interested in whether you were considering to become more open source or have
on
others
the technology.
or maybe, if I don't know if it's possible, but maybe just to make sure that on the one hand it can be shared with a lot of other people, maybe people that do not have the budget for the larger corporations, but also want to try things out and also scale for you to make sure that this, because we're here with the Singularity University, there's people talking about solving the grand challenges.
Probably it's not in the map for now. What's in the map for now is the ingredients. So what we find, what we produce. So that ingredient, we have samples that we send around, but also in terms of an amazing dream for us would be to one day be able to say, okay, we're going to solve this problem somewhere, this disease somewhere in the world. And we're going to put our efforts in solving it and actually make it open source. And we're not talking about the code here, we're talking about that ingredient that actually we give away the rights to that ingredient because it's solving such a big problem.
Right.
So that is something I think all the scientists within the company would definitely dream of, because that you see a clear transformation, and obviously not everyone can afford making their health better. So if you can give it for free, that's the way forward, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So not the system behind it, but at least some sort of an open source peptide. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
So this was another episode live from De La Mar in Amsterdam, where we are talking to a lot of interesting people, guests, other intelligent people that are on stage here today. We will be live here all day, so stay with us. See you soon.